Xerax and Declan, who were confused, instantly sensed a dreadful presence far from them. It was the most powerful presence they had ever sensed from a monster. A peak SSS rank monster, apart from the records of them appearing a few times inside a dungeon, there had never been a case where a peak SSS rank monster appeared in the last 200 years. This can't be happening, Declan said as he poured a healing potion on his wound. This is not good, Dexter thought as he headed in the direction where Silvus had gone when they had split up. Despite being injured, the other 3 SSS rank hunters didn't stop. They went after Dexter, not wasting any time. If what they sensed was correct, it was better to group up than to individually face such a monster with less numbers. At the location, Osbert looked down at the black figure that had a black stone on its forehead. Its presence was corrupting the land around it. The stature of the monster was similar, but it was an entirely different monster. Each SSS rank monster had an ability that made them worthy of the title, Calamity. Unfortunately, the beast that Xerax and the others were fighting had the ability to absorb monsters and strengthen itself. Right now, the 2 most affected by this situation were Farnas and Osbert. My decade of planning will not fall here, Osbert thought as he took out an orb-like artifact and crushed it. Instantly, a faint glow appeared around Osbert's hand and it moved on, covering his whole body. It was an extremely powerful SSS rank artifact that Osbert had obtained years ago. But unlike Osbert, Farnas was not in the most convenient spot in this fight. As a peak SSS rank hunter, Farnas would have the highest chance of defeating this monster with his SSS rank armor and the ancient rune he possessed, but for some reason, he didn't want to use it. In an instant, Dexter, and after him, Xerax, Declan and the SSS rank hunter of the Watson family also gathered in the land that was being affected by the black element that the monster possessed. 7 SSS rank hunters had gathered in one spot to fight a single monster, but all of them were being careful while facing this monster. Be careful, his attacks sap your energy, Xerax said as he floated downward. With a single glance, black marks were visible on their arms and the broken areas of their armor. Just by that fact alone, Silvus could sense that this monster might not be as easy to deal with as he had thought. Even if it was a peak SSS rank existence, they had a total of 7 SSS rank hunters on their side. It wouldn't take long for them to defeat it as together they were much more powerful than a peak SSS rank existence. But judging from the fact that even 3 of them couldn't defeat it on time made him realize that the threat was much bigger than he thought. Ads by Pub Future. The monster looked around calmly as it sensed the presence of many powerful beings and locked eyes with Farnas, who was standing in the center. No one was moving as they were waiting for the monster to make the first move. Its eyes started burning with blue fire as the molten red scales became etched with black and 5 horns grew on the head of the monster. Just as the monster stepped forward, a ripple was created with its step. Suddenly, the area around them was covered with a similar black element entrapment, but this time even the most powerful people on Earth couldn't react to stop it. All sources of light disappeared as they found themselves standing in complete darkness, but none of them needed light or vision to sense the presence around them. This damn monster can create a domain outside a dungeon, Dexter said as Silvus closed his eyes and started chanting spells. A huge ball of fire appeared above them as Silvus created a source of light. Floating in the air, a silvery mana bubble surrounded Silvus, whose cloak started fluttering as the monster locked eyes with him. But before it could charge towards Silvus, Farnas grabbed his spear as he unleashed his mana at near full strength, causing the monster to divert its eyes toward Farnas. Keep it away from Silvus, Farnas said, disappearing the next moment. Bam! A shockwave appeared all around the black domain, as the beast stopped Farnas's spear with its claws. The black stone glowed and a ripple was created beneath them. Did it just absorb his attack? Dexter frowned, noticing that almost the entirety of Farnas's attack was absorbed by the entrapment domain they were stuck in. Farnas didn't stop as he turned his spear to attack once again, and again, and again. The shockwaves from their battle were enough to keep the other SSS rank hunters from interfering. They were waiting for the opportunity that Farnas would eventually create, but they were all confused. Why is he not using his rune and that armor's ability? Zerax muttered. None of them knew, but they believed that Farnas had something in mind by not using his full strength. Contemporary romance. Farnas's spear struck the ground, causing ripples to start appearing all around the black globe they were stuck in. The monster easily deflected all of Farnas's attacks, but Farnas didn't stop. His eyes were focused on the black stone on the monster's head. He could see that the monster would always react more aggressively whenever his spear would target the stone, but despite his lightning aura, Farnas couldn't outspeed the monster. Luminous Ras, Silvus completed his chant, and a silver light pillar appeared all around them. Zerax and others felt the black energy inside their bodies diminishing. But the dome of black energy wasn't affected at all, despite Silvus's tier 5 spell countering the monster's ability. The reason was clear: this entrapment dome was created by a peak SSS rank monster, and it wasn't something that Silvus could easily destroy. The monster deflected Farnas's spear, and the gap between them widened. The next instant, bluish fire started covering the beast. The monster looked around as it opened its mouth to roar loudly. The black energy from the dome rushed into its body. At that moment, not waiting for Farnas's signal, each of the SSS rank hunters attacked the monster with their weapons. Mana clashed where the monster was standing. But a shield of fire stopped their attacks from harming the monster. The black stone dug further into the monster's head. It grew larger than before, looking down at Farnas, who was standing with lightning traveling all around his body. Instead of attacking Farnas first, the monster targeted the other SSS rank hunters, and its first target was Declan, who was the most injured one there. But before it could connect, Dexter appeared and brought down his hammer on the monster. Instead of pushing the monster back, the monster stopped the hammer itself. Dexter smiled as golden runes erupted from his hammer, latching onto the monster that disappeared from its place. But it didn't matter, explosions happened due to the runes that Dexter had used. Declan raised his sword, knowing that the monster would target him soon, but Osbert's words distracted him for a second. "Hey, old man, why aren't you using your runes?" Osbert asked Farnas, who was standing still on the ground. But before Farnas could answer, the monster roared, and the dome started moving. The monster disappeared into the black energy. The next moment, it appeared just beneath Declan, its claws immediately attacking Declan's foot. He dodged it at the last second, saving himself from the monster. Silvus, having finished his chanting, stepped on the ground. A red chain lay on the ground as his highest tier restricting spell was cast. The chains made it impossible for the monster to appear from below as they broke the connection of the mana from the ground. None of them waited as the monster appeared in the middle and went after one SSS rank hunter after another. Right now, they didn't have time to question Farnas further. Even a single second of mistake could make them the prey of this monster. Dexter stopped the claw of the monster with his hammer, but fire around the monster erupted, slightly burning his hands despite the protection of his aura. "This damn domain," Zerax said as he slashed towards the monster, freeing Dexter. All of them could feel that their mana was being heavily restricted inside this domain, but Farnas was having the most difficulty among them. He was the only one the monster was really going after, as all the other SSS rank hunters were merely bait for Farnas to move. Each time Farnas moved, the monster would disappear and emerge behind him, trying to pierce its claws through his heart. "Do I really have no choice?" Farnas thought as he blocked the monster once more, and it disappeared into the black dome above him. The monster soon disappeared into the black dome above them, and its presence spread evenly into the entire dome. It was as if the domain around them was the monster itself, making it impossible for anyone to predict where the monster would reappear next. However, the monster soon re-emerged directly above them in the air, launching itself towards Silvus, who was at the center. Silvus's gaze fell on the monster speeding towards him with insane velocity, but despite being a mage, he remained calm as a mana shield erupted around him. A massive sound wave erupted as the monster's hand began clashing with the mana shield, slowly beginning to penetrate the shield. Still, Silvus didn't need to worry about it at that moment. His role was to support the other hunters, not fight alone, and he was not about to waste his mana doing anything useless. This composure is what made Silvus the strongest mage in the world. A mage needed to remain calm in most situations to cast insanely difficult spells and modify them instantly, depending on the situation. And the level of concentration required to cast tier 5 spells, the highest tier spells, was something only a few could manage. Dexter descended with a hammer as the monster dodged, leaving Silvus alone. This damn thing, Dexter raised his hammer as a spiral of runes appeared around him. One by one, each of the 6 SSS rank hunters, except Silvus, started attacking the monster, while Farnas took the lead and kept it distracted. Even though they were under the monster's entrapment spell, the mana waves they created were not absorbed by the strange dome surrounding them. Does it only absorb the force behind the attacks? Silvus questioned while multiple magic circles started appearing behind him. And Silvus was right. The mana waves from their battle escaped the entrapment spell, causing problems for Belveria. Raise the barriers, a man shouted, as over 100 mages created barriers to shield the cities from the destructive mana wave. Permission to use SS rank defensive artifacts is granted, an executive declared on the hologram, as multiple artifacts were placed on the ground. Handle the monsters. Another SS rank hunter shouted, launching himself towards the monster. Despite their efforts, the mana waves from the clash of SSS rank beings managed to reach the cities. Buildings began to crack, and several awakened people started passing out. Although thin, these mana waves were still very destructive. The power that 8 SSS rank beings could generate was enough to destroy the massive Belveria continent. Known as the Water Continent, Belveria, one of the most beautiful places, was now a breath away from destruction. A significant number of SS rank hunters were shielding the cities from the mana waves, but they couldn't hold out for long. Why did it get so intense all of a sudden? An executive questioned, but no answer came. Ads by Pub Future. All mana reading devices were destroyed, and they could only hope that whatever battle was going on could end fast enough before their line of defense fell, and the cities were destroyed. Hey, old man, why are you holding back? Osbert asked as he attacked the monster. Farnas didn't reply. He was in a position where he didn't want to use his full powers, but the situation didn't allow him to do so. Osbert intentionally said it out loud because Farnas had done the same with the previous monster they were fighting. But this time, he knew that the problem was too big for Farnas to hold back. The fight continued on, with Farnas taking the lead once more. Lightning started getting absorbed into his body, increasing his speed. Farnas' spear started moving in an unusual way, with each of his strikes matching the monster's. A bit more, Farnas thought as his iris began to shine blue. His mana meridians were getting reinforced by the lightning aura that he exuded. But as he was attacking, Farnas sensed danger and immediately dashed back. A blue fire emerged on the spot as one of the monster's eyes dimmed. Farnas's gaze turned cold as he felt the monster's killing intent. It had been a long time since he had felt something like that, a feeling of danger. But the single attack changed Farnas's mind. The black stone on the monster's head submerged, causing the monster to grow further. It seems that I have no choice, Farnas thought, feeling cornered. If he held back any longer, he could see that even he might have a hard time surviving. The monster had marked Farnas as the prey instead of going after other SSS rank hunters. In the next instant, black energy erupted from the black stone. Two new creatures with the strength of mid-SSS rank monsters appeared, their foreheads marked with two eyes made of blue fire. The black stone was completely absorbed as a pair of fully black eyes appeared. The monster roared loudly. While this was happening, Dexter and Osbert both tried to attack the monster, but the black energy from the stone stopped them. Farnas lowered his spear, giving up on holding back any longer. He could feel the danger from the monster that was looking at him, ignoring the new SSS rank puppets created by the monster. Soon enough, blue runes appeared all over Farnas's body, causing his armor to shine. Tremendous powers of the lightning element started coursing through Farnas's body. Simultaneously, the strange rune began to light up, absorbing the surrounding lightning element. Within mere seconds, Farnas's presence had become significantly more powerful than before. Silvers looked at Farnas, who was using this ability after many years. It was an ability that made Farnas the strongest and could potentially turn the situation in their favor. The lightning around Farnas stopped as his armor started shining. It changed into the true form of the storm-scale armor. Lightning of the thousand storms, Farnas said, his armor changing completely into stark white, surrounded by golden and blue lightning, and a crown made of deadly lightning aura appeared on his head. Sigh. Farnas sighed, knowing that all this might be for nothing. But the more he thought about it, the more enraged he got, his killing intent becoming visible. Die, Farnas said, disappearing from his spot, as did the monster. Both of them clashed in the air, their power forming cracks in the entrapment spell above. It was rare to see someone like Farnas, who usually remained calm and composed, getting angry like this, even while fighting for his life. But Farnas couldn't stop himself from getting enraged. All his preparations for the future had gone down the drain. His spear started shining as Farnas changed the way he attacked completely, with his spear traversing through air with an insanely high speed. Contemporary romance. Exchanges of clashes from the peak SSS rank existence caused the space around them to shake. Farnas's spear began to glow as the pure lightning element harmed the monster's body each time they clashed. In an instant, the monster's claw reached Farnas's elbow. As Farnas thrust his spear, the monster's claw was deflected by his armor. At the World Academy, Kevin was sparring with Eva and Elena, who were attacking him. Don't hold back, Kevin told them, and Elena increased the intensity of her attacks. Eva kept creating barriers to stop Kevin, who was using his lightning aura. The purpose of their sparring was to increase the efficiency of his lightning aura. At that moment, Kevin was dodging attacks from both Elena and Eva. But as he was about to dodge Elena's fire bullet, he suddenly felt a lot of his strength fading. He paused for a moment, and it made Elena's fire bullet hit him directly in the chest. Bam! Kevin crashed into the wall. Elena's face turned pale. Kevin! Elena shouted, rushing to him. His armor stopped the impact from harming him much, but he was still injured. Why didn't you dodge? Elena asked, supporting Kevin, who was clutching his chest. What happened? Eva also came close, looking worried. A mistake like this wasn't something Kevin would make, and they didn't know what happened to him at the last moment. But the next moment, Elena felt her heart drop as Kevin lost consciousness, and her hands started shaking. Elena, let's take him to the medical facility. Eva immediately said, but Elena was too scared to move. Her hands were shaking. She felt that she had done something terrible to Kevin. Elena. Eva shook Elena, who looked at her with tears forming in her eyes. We need to take him to the doctors, she told Elena, grabbing her shoulders. Ah, yes, Elena managed to reply, standing up. Both of them helped Kevin up. They didn't know what happened to Kevin, but they took him to the medical facility as quickly as possible. So he finally got serious, Dexter said as he looked at Farnas, who was pushing the monster back with each of his strikes. The lightning element was not simply an element of destruction. If used correctly to form a lightning aura, it boosted the user's strength, similar to how an augmenter's magic worked. But unlike augmenting magic, it amplified the senses of the person who successfully used the lightning aura. Even AD rank hunter like Kevin could perform this, and although it was a powerful effect, the mastery of lightning aura that Farnes had was far from weak. His lightning aura made it possible for him to nullify the effects of any mana that wasn't his around him. This was the very essence of the ancient rune that Farnes possessed, making him the most powerful hunter in the world. Although he would face the brunt of the power, the essence and intent in that mana would get nullified. However, that ancient rune had its limitations. He needed to constantly supply pure lightning to keep the rune active, and that was where the storm scale armor came in. Each of Farnes's items and powers meshed together to form a balance. The SSS rank storm scale armor was not simply a defensive armor type artifact, it had a lot of offensive abilities as well. But instead of unleashing that lightning on his enemies, Farnes absorbed it with his ancient rune, creating the most powerful aura, something considered the most powerful aura in the world. Even if it was temporary, Farnes could, at that moment, face all the 6 SSS rank hunters alone. Golden lightning, ha, Osbert muttered, sensing the power behind Farnes's aura. Golden lightning aura was the term given to Farnes whenever he used his ancient rune with the storm scale armor. The old man, usually exuding a sense of calmness and serenity, now had the most powerful presence. Yet, there was one thing that didn't allow any of them to relax. Despite Farnes going all out and pushing the monster back with his strikes, this was a battle with a peak SSS rank existence. They were certain the monster wouldn't go down easily. They were right. As soon as Farnes engaged in a one-on-one battle with the monster, the other 2 monsters that had emerged from the one Farnes was fighting started roaring loudly. The cracks in the entrapment spell began to heal themselves as the monsters looked at the other SSS rank hunters, their killing intent visible. Ads by Pub Future. All the SSS rank hunters charged at them, intent on finishing these strange monsters first so they could then focus on the one that Farnes was fighting. These monsters were quite similar to the peak SSS rank monster with their black bodies, but they had no horns and only a single, burning eye. Strangely, since their appearance, the effect of the entrapment spell had strengthened and started to heal itself. It didn't take long for all the hunters to realize that these monsters needed to be killed as soon as possible. Even though Farnes was currently pushing the monster back, if the effects of these strange domains became stronger, there was a chance that Farnes might not be able to continue his assault. Dexter jumped in the air, bringing his hammer down on one of the 2 SSS rank monsters. However, it dodged at the last second, and the impact was absorbed by the entrapment domain. The monster charged towards Dexter, but Zerax intercepted, slashing his sword and creating a small cut near the monster's gut. But the cut disappeared soon as the monster charged towards Zerax, while the other monster engaged with Declan and Osbert, who were working together. Damn, does this one heal as well? Osbert asked as his flaming sword cut through the shoulder of the monster. The rate at which they were healing was much higher than the monster that Farnes and Osbert had fought for weeks. Aim for their eyes, Silvus advised as he floated in the air, silver mana coursing around him. He could sense that all the mana in those monsters were concentrated near the eye, and the body was nothing but a vessel for those 2 burning eyes. Silvus began chanting one of his strongest spells, and with each word he uttered, the mana around him trembled. I will abolish this domain, keep them busy, Silvus said his final words before closing his eyes and encasing his body in a crystal of silver mana. I think you should take a look at. The protection of the Archmage's mana allowed Silvus to chant a spell without interruption from any outside factor, but that didn't mean it couldn't be broken. But for now, Silvus's mana, previously running rampant, became calm and steady. The monsters tried to move towards Silvus, but they were stopped as the other SSS rank hunters intercepted them. Meanwhile, the spikes on the crown above Farnes increased to 3, the number proportional to the amount of lightning element his rune had absorbed. Contemporary romance. The Crown of Light was the name that Farnus had given to the ability of his ancient rune. Each spike that appeared indicated an increase in Farnus's power and his golden lightning aura. Farnus's limit was 6 spikes, but the current version of him could only conjure 3 of them, as the storm scale armor he had was only half its original self. The monster paused, retreating slightly as a black element spell structure formed behind him. These weren't just magic that could be used by mages, even monsters could cast them, but their magic was much different from a real spell. Their spells had no intent behind them, making them useless for any human who would try to mimic them. Hence, these were called abilities that the monsters innately possessed, and to cast them, no intent was needed. Even the strongest monster, a peak SSS rank monster, didn't possess the intelligence required to form intent in a spell. Farnus's eyes shifted above as whips of black energy appeared all around, but as they tried to reach him, his aura demolished all of them. The only way to counter Farnus's aura was to make an attack strong enough to destroy his aura, considered the strongest among all the hunters in the world. Farnus spun his spear, deflecting all the other whips that targeted his face. His power was increasing, but he could soon feel that he was reaching the limit that he could currently push. Without the other half of the storm-scale armor, it was impossible for him to summon all the 6 spikes he was capable of. This was why he used the other option. He recovered the full part of the ancient rune that was present on the other storm-scale armor and left the armor alone. Without it, Farnus wouldn't be able to maintain the golden lightning aura for long, and he didn't know how much time it would take to kill this monster. The black element was the worst element a monster could possess out of all elements. Although other elements were equally terrifying if used by a peak SSS rank existence, the black element was the worst for long-drawn battles. Fortunately, the monster didn't possess the illusionary power of the black element, but only the curse entrapment ability that was used by many black element mages. However, it wasn't as powerful when used by monsters. This entire entrapment domain diminished the power of all the hunters while amplifying the power of the monster. If it weren't for that, the monster wouldn't be able to match Farnus's speed so equally, as it was doing currently. 1,000 spins, Farnus dashed and appeared behind the monsters. His spear traveled in a strange path as it slashed the monster multiple times. Gra! The monster roared as a massive wave of energy went around, pushing Farnus back a little bit. Instead of stopping, Farnus charged once again. His path was untraceable, even by an S-rank hunter. Despite the massive power Farnus possessed, he didn't waste any of it. It was handled gracefully as he attacked the monster. And that was the spear art, the skill all spear users aspired to learn. The power to use mana in such a way was something only Farnus could do, as his ancient rune amplified the effect each strike would have on his enemy. Get down, Farnus commanded as he brought the monster down with a hit of his spear on the creature's claws. Despite crashing down, the monster recovered immediately and lunged towards Farnus in an enraged state. Farnus stopped the monster's attack with the tip of his spear. He spun his body and slashed the monster's stomach, causing it to bleed a black liquid. Despite the damage, he could see that the monster was still alive with no effect on its strength. He needed to find the weakness of the monster before his aura ran out. He was still trying to figure out a way to deal a critical blow and end this battle soon. Alert! Please evacuate if you are in the city, announcements could be heard across the city. Some of the buildings had already fallen, and the damage just kept getting worse. Medics were dispatched to the city to identify any awakened individuals who had been hit by the mana wave. Although most people had evacuated, there were still some residents remaining who needed to be rescued. Amidst the chaos, important areas within the cities were being separately protected to prevent anyone from taking advantage of the situation. We have raised the mana barriers over the cities, the announcement said. After 24 hours, we will completely seal the city with mana barriers. The announcement was repeated. The alert was sounded across 3 cities to warn even awakened individuals of D rank and below to evacuate. The incoming mana wave carried rampant mana, which could damage the mana core of many people. Over time, this could lead to mana poisoning, killing thousands if they absorbed this mana wave. Instruct the A rank hunters to retreat. Only S rank or above will stay at the borders, the executive announced as they received multiple reports. The intensity of the mana wave beyond the mana barrier had a chance to damage the mana core of an A rank, which led to the recall of all A rank and below hunters from the borders. While maintaining the mana barrier, the SS rank hunters fought the beast to keep the monster horde at bay. Inside the entrapment dome, which had a radius of half a kilometer, Declan, the vice chairman of the World Association, was battling with Osbert. However, a shoulder injury made his attacks somewhat weaker. The effect of the entrapment domain was also impairing his strength. Both Osbert and Declan, familiar with each other's fighting style, took turns attacking the puppet monster. Boom! A massive explosion happened in the air as some saw a monster flying towards the sky and getting absorbed into the black dome. Farnas used a lightning blast, converting the energy of his spear into a massive explosion that could be directed wherever he wanted. The physical force behind the attack was absorbed by the dome, but Farnas was sure that he had inflicted some damage on the monster. His keen eyes noted that the monster had attempted to evade the attack and had taken shelter in the black dome. Farnas's armor began to glow, lightning thundering all around him, all emanating from the storm-scale armor. A bluish rune appeared around Farnas's neck, forming a certain pattern and amplifying the golden lightning surrounding him. Farnas moved his spear, the lightning tracing its path, his crown of light brightening and his aura intensifying. The monster lunged out of the dome, its black eyes focusing on Farnas, who it deemed to be the most significant threat. But instead of charging directly at Farnas, its claw extended and black whips unfurled, chasing Farnas who skillfully dodged them. Boom! Adds by Pub Future. Rather than maintaining his distance, Farnas rushed forward, causing a massive sound wave as he dashed. But now, the problem for the other SSS rank hunters grew more substantial as the two SSS rank monsters kept regenerating their wounds. Even as they aimed their attacks at the blue fire burning in their eyes, the monsters would dodge or use their bodies as a shield. Osbert slashed at the ground where the monster stood, but it evaded his attack. This damn thing, Xerax cursed as he felt his strength ebbing. He had been fighting for nearly a month, and his mana was far from its peak. This made even these SSS rank monsters a challenge for them. If not for Dexter, who was cornering the monster each time, he wouldn't have managed to fight this long without suffering a critical injury. At the World Academy, he is suffering from mana rebound, the doctor informed Elena and Eva, who were waiting outside the medical room where Kevin was placed. Was he absorbing any kind of mana gem? The doctor asked. No. We were only sparring, Eva replied. Strange. Our analysis shows that the mana instability is the major issue, the doctor responded. Kevin wasn't just any ordinary student, he was from an elite family, which made the doctors pay extra attention to him. However, nothing that Eva and Elena said matched with their diagnosis for why Kevin had fainted. Well, he will be fine, but we need to monitor his mana more closely, the doctor advised. We will stay here for now, Elena declared, and the doctor had no choice but to comply with their decision. I think you should take a look at. The students before him were the daughters of two different elite families, and he couldn't simply tell them to leave. So, he went back inside, leaving Elena and Eva still anxious about Kevin's condition. Did this happen because of me? Elena mumbled, her voice shaky. She was blaming herself for Kevin's unconscious state but was unaware of the true cause of the incident. Only two people knew what had happened to Kevin, Farnas and Asher himself. Currently, Asher was inspecting the hidden quest reward he had received and could easily surmise why it might have happened. Hidden quest completed. Objective: limit Kevin Whiteheart's growth. Reward: 1000 fate points. The prompt had appeared out of nowhere while Asher was mastering node art. He paused, speculating that this could only mean one thing. So my assumption was correct, Asher muttered upon receiving confirmation about Kevin Whiteheart's admission into the medical facility. He suspected that it was related to the other half of the storm scale armor or the ancient rune that Farnes possessed. So, it will end soon, Asher mused, looking at the number of people that Tom had successfully brought under his tech. He knew that all the calamities would soon be resolved, but he was unaware of the peculiar occurrence of the peak SSS rank monster. In his previous life, the SSS rank monsters that were forcefully awakened did so one at a time, not simultaneously as Asher had initiated. Ignoring the current situation, Asher soon returned to his training. Is the old man still not finished? Declan shouted, referring to Silvus who was still chanting his spell. But the burden on them was increasing. The domain's power was affecting them more and more over time. They were protecting Silvus, who was in the midst of casting a spell. Keep your eyes on them, Osbert reminded Declan as he parried the monster's attack with his sword. Pushing it back, he glanced at Declan who was the most injured of all the SSS rank hunters, even more so than Xerax. Boom! A massive explosion occurred, drawing all eyes upwards to see Farnes standing amidst the blasts, his spear impaling the throat of the monster. So this is your weakness? Farnes queried as he saw his spear miss the black stone inside the monster's head. He was about to pierce the monster's head, but it twisted its body, allowing Farnes to impale its jaw instead. However, instead of recoiling, the monster grabbed the spear, its black eyes beginning to exude black energy. The other SSS rank monsters below them turned their heads towards the sky. The next instant, they levitated towards Farnes, who glanced sideways. But Dexter and Osbert prevented them from ascending further as they battled in midair, positioned below Farnes and the peak SSS rank monster. Contemporary romance. Stay down, you damn thing, Dexter shouted as he smashed the monster's claw, forcing it down. But Farnes felt that something was amiss, despite being so close to him, especially his golden lightning aura, the monster was taking the damage as its aura kept nullifying the black element of the monster. He felt that the monster was overly aggressive and was causing more harm to itself in the course of the fight. Rather than waiting, Farnes amplified his aura and spun his spear, forcing the monster to release its grip. He then redirected his spear towards the monster's head. There was only one thing Farnes didn't know all this time, and had he been aware, he would have never used his ancient rune or summoned the Crown of Light at all. Just as they were running out of time due to their mana being depleted by the domain, the monster wasn't much different. It wasn't an original peak SSS rank, the strength it had gained was temporary, and the more it absorbed the black stone's energy, the stronger it became. However, this power was not permanent. To consolidate its strength, it needed years to truly become a peak SSS rank. But for now, it had the power of a peak SSS rank monster, and although it would soon end, the most significant threat when it weakened was Farnes. Therefore, it was hell-bent on killing Farnes first before chasing after the other SSS rank hunters. If only Farnes had known this, he would have chosen to risk the chance of getting critically injured in a fight rather than wasting the efforts he had put in for the last 15 years. Gra! The monster roared at Farnes, and the ones below became even more aggressive. Do it fast, Silvus, Dexter muttered as he clashed with the SSS rank monster. Shatter. The silver crystal shattered. Silvus, who had his eyes closed, became visible, and upon opening his eyes, a massive silver spell circle appeared on the ground. Finally, Dexter thought as he repelled the monster. A complex, silver-colored spell structure materialized on the ground as Silvus raised his hands. The structure began to multiply, replicating its pattern all around them. To their sides and above, spell circles filled their view wherever they looked. Silvus clasped his hands together. A wave of mana pulsed from him, each spell circle responding in kind with a similar wave of energy. Quote. Dispel, Silvus muttered at last. The black dome, unaffected thus far by the clashes between the monster and Farnas, began to absorb into the silver spell circles. Many of the radiant spell circles began to turn grey, but their efforts against the entrapment spell were successful. Silvus's bright eyes dimmed, drained from using so much mana for the spell. He hadn't fully recovered his mana from the previous battle, but he had enough to cast a spell powerful enough to shatter even a peak SSS rank monster's entrapment spell, a feat only he could accomplish in a world without another SSS rank mage. He had crafted this ultimate mana dispelling spell himself after researching the unique abilities of his own mana. The pulses of mana could be felt by everyone present, their mana cores vibrating in response to Silvus's spell. But this was not an offensive spell. Silvus designed this particular spell for the specific purpose of dispelling spells or entrapment spells. Knowing that the entrapment spell didn't absorb mana, Silvus deduced that by severing the connection throughout the black dome, he could successfully shatter it. Crack. Cracks began to appear in the pitch-black domain, signaling its imminent destruction. The peak SSS rank monster sensed the shift. Suddenly, the fiery eyes of the puppet SSS rank monsters below flared intensely, their body structures growing rigid. Boom boom. Both monsters targeted Osbert and Dexter, their attacks more aggressive than before, black whips emerging from their bodies. This feels much better, Dexter said as he pushed back the monster with a swing of his hammer. Thanks to Silvus's still active spell, the effects of the black dome were diminishing, and they could feel some of their strength returning. Crackle. The sound of crackling lightning and sparks appearing in the air reached all the hunters present. As their strength surged, so did Farnas's. His power increased, intensifying his golden lightning aura and causing sparks to fly around him. His eyes turned a clear blue. The peak SSS rank monster stared at Farnas as its black energy started becoming even more threatening. Contemporary romance. Ads by Pub Future. Recognizing its adversary had grown stronger, the monster drew more power from the strange black stone. The black stone was the mana core of the SSS rank monster that Xerax, Declan, and the SSS rank hunter from the Watson family were battling. It was this monster's ability to absorb or consume nearly dead SSS rank monsters, which were slightly stronger than itself, that had transformed it into the completely different monster it was now. Roaring, the monster's black energy seeped out from its body, floating around it, making its intentions clear. The entrapment spell had not been lifted yet, causing the monster to become enraged as it sensed a threat to its life. Farnas charged, his spear countering the black energy, but their clash was a stalemate. Neither of the two peak SSS rank beings yielded as they fought in the same space, teleporting from one location to another. Farnas charged his spear, determined to target the black stone within the monster. He was certain that the black stone was the monster's weakness. The monster's efforts to protect it were proof enough for Farnas to draw this conclusion. Despite this, Farnas was wary of getting too close to the monster. He knew that his golden lightning aura could deflect the black element, but if he got too close, his aura might not be able to withstand and neutralize the black energy. Even if Farnas had abandoned his 15 years of efforts, he wouldn't summon all of it back at any cost. Despite the threat, he had no other option but to use his ancient rune and half of the storm-scale armor. Hence, his crown of light only had 3 spikes instead of the 6 he could usually produce. His spear traced the same path over and over, but Farnas would randomly change its trajectory, making it impossible to predict his attack. The only way to counter Farnas's spear art was to react quickly whenever he made his move. If Nathan was hailed as the sword god, then Farnas was recognized as the spear god. His spear art was sought after by elite families for their heirs, but Farnas turned down their offers. He announced he would only teach his technique to his successor at the World Academy, and this person would be chosen from among its students. No point in struggling, Farnas muttered as he switched the spear to his left. He slammed the spear down in midair, a wave of lightning spreading around them and sparks swirling in the air. Some sparks made contact with the monster, burning its body upon contact. Although the damage was minor, it was one of Farnas's skills that allowed him to slow down his enemy's senses and nerves. It was a unique application of the lightning element. However, the lightning element alone wasn't enough to harm an SSS rank entity. That's where his ancient rune came into play. Comparing Farnas's lightning to normal lightning was a slight to Farnas's legacy and his strength. Those who had faced Farnas or fought against him at some point knew how different it felt to battle him. Initially, everyone thought it was Farnas's bloodline ability, but when Farnas proposed the creation of the World Academy, he revealed his secret. One of the things that people could never have imagined existed. The ancient rune, the source of his golden lightning. Silvus, who was floating in the air, lifted his hands as the cracks on the black dome continued to widen. He glanced down, his amber eyes settling on the two SSS rank monsters below. He raised his eyebrows as he noticed a mana connection forming between the two monsters. When he looked above, he saw that it was connected to the monster Farnas was currently fighting. Eye of the Archmage was a unique ability that only Silvus possessed among all the mages and hunters. This unique ability, which he could only use for a very short time after pushing his silver mana to the extreme, allowed him to see mana, or more specifically, threads of mana. Every single thing, living or non-living, had a trace of mana inside it. But the pure mana that turned into elements was different from the mana that was present all around the world. The eye of the Archmage allowed Silvus to see that world with his naked eyes, a world only high-ranking hunters could sense. All SSS rank hunters could sense this world, but seeing it with their eyes was a completely different experience. And right now, he could see a connection, albeit faint, between the monsters. What is it trying to achieve? Silvus muttered, frowning. Kill them, Silvus instructed the other hunters, summoning countless fireballs around them. Easier said than done, Zerax replied as he tried to slash the monster with his sword, but it dodged his attack. Don't lose focus now, Dexter said as he reminded them, and cast another rune around him. We can end all of this soon, Dexter added. The silver spell circles all around the black dome had turned murky gray, and the entrapment spell was about to lift off. All of them would soon be freed from the effects of the spell that had made them weaker. Farnas glanced below as he could see that Silvus was almost done breaking the black dome, and he knew he needed to corner this monster as soon as possible. If somehow this monster were to recreate the entrapment spell, it wouldn't bode well at all, considering nearly everyone was running low on mana. The battle was entering its final moments, and it would soon decide who would survive in the end. Unbeknownst to Farnas, he was fighting a monster that would soon run out of power derived from the black stone. They were rushing the battle that could have been their win if they hadn't assumed the monster to be an actual peak SSS rank monster. And if only. Farnas Calmot had been fighting at his full strength. Zerax and Dexter charged together to corner the monster, while Osbert and Declan were doing the same with another one. The Watson family's SSS rank hunter also took to the air as he started looking for his chance to strike. Killing an SSS rank existence wasn't an easy thing at all. One small mistake and one of them could get injured, and despite the result of this battle, their injuries would make them weaker than all the other SSS rank hunters. None of the people present here trusted each other, and all of them were fighting while making sure that their guard was up the whole time. It was the only way they could work together, but right now this became a major struggle as, to kill the two monsters, they needed to take a risk. Silvus was the only one here who was ready to take the risk, but he was already busy maintaining the countless spell circles that were draining and destroying the Black Dome. Clashes after clashes took place, and the monsters kept dodging, attacking a few times if any one of them made a single mistake. Monsters, unlike humans, weren't afraid of hurting themselves in order to feed on their prey, and these puppet monsters that were made from the power of the peak SSS rank monster, or to say they were part of its power, weren't even considering the attacks of the SSS rank hunters to be harmful, unless it was aimed at their burning eyes. The bluish flame was something that the monsters didn't let any of them get close enough to. But as the Black Dome was losing its strength, these monsters weren't enough to endure the attacks of so many SSS rank hunters. Huff, huff, Zerax was breathing heavily as he blocked the claws of the monster and backed away. "Don't get tired, old man," Dexter said as he went past Zerax and smashed his hammer towards the monster. "Who are you calling old, damn it?" Zerax replied as he stepped forward and rushed between Dexter and the monster. There was a question that would come to everyone, and it was about the rankings of SSS rank hunters individually. But there was no correct answer. Nobody knew about each other's true strength, as each SSS rank hunter never revealed their trump cards when they fought together. Just like Nathan hid the fact about the Rune of Airden, each of them held something that wasn't known to anyone in the world. Apart from Silvus and Farnas, who were considered the most powerful out of all SSS rank hunters, mostly because of the time they lived. They were the oldest of all SSS rank hunters. Zerax pushed the monster backward, and in an instant, the Watson family's SSS rank hunter appeared behind it, his sword aimed at the head with incredible speed. He was looking for an opportunity, and he found it, but the monster's burning flame eyes turned to the side as it tilted backward. Their body structure didn't have any sort of rigidness, and they could move at almost all angles. It made their ability to react much faster than any other SSS rank monsters. Unlike a gigantic monster, which had destructive power but was easier to hurt and find openings toward. But the sword passed through the empty air, leaving a mark, and it was the unique ability of the Watson family. Something that made the SSS rank hunter of the Watson family responsible for Armak's prison. Ads by Pub Future. A line of swords appeared in the air as he kept swinging his sword at the monster, not stopping at all. The monster kept dodging and attacking, but the lines kept appearing in the empty air, one by one. Suddenly he stopped, and the lines started vibrating. Countless invisible lines that he had made during their battle started becoming visible, as Zerax looked around. What a unique ability, he thought, despite seeing it many times before. 100 Eyes, the Watson family's SSS rank hunter muttered. As he closed his own eyes and charged towards the monster. His speed increased, and his swordsmanship became very aggressive. Something that could be called reckless by some, but those who knew about the Watson family's bloodline ability knew that it wasn't a reckless way of fighting. Spreading their senses in the space around them, an ability to dominate the space around them if they could manage to mark the area around them with their mana. It was something much more complex than the mana sense that Asher used, but the Watsons used it in exchange for their senses. In that space, if you weren't way faster or stronger than him, it wasn't possible to surprise attack him at all. Zerax entered the battle once again, while Dexter went towards Osbert and Declan, who were clashing with the monster. Meanwhile, Farnas was charging and nullifying the black element that was all around the monster. Ha! Farnas cried out as he swung his spear downwards, and an arc of devastating lightning went downwards. The monster barely dodged it, but it burnt half of its face, revealing a black stone inside its head once again. It started healing, but its anger began to rise as well, and it was visible as the monster became much more aggressive towards Farnas. The lightning around Farnas kept becoming stronger, little by little, as the effect of the dome was disappearing. With the movement of his spear, the lightning itself moved in the way that Farnas desired. A control over an element that could even put mages to shame, that was the level Farnas was at. And his control was similar or even much stronger than the control that the monster had over the black element. All because of his rune, which played a major part in Farnas becoming the strongest SSS rank hunter in the world. Farnas's eyes traveled all over as he kept pushing the monster back, giving it no chance to even think about anything. With Silvus's spell all over the Black Dome, the monster had lost the ability to hide in the Black Dome or even run because the moment it did, it could feel that Farnas's spear would impale its head. The moment one of these two showed weakness was the moment they would die, and both of them understood that. And Farnas kept getting more aggressive, as just like the monster, even his time for using the golden lightning aura was running out. Their clashes kept sending mana waves, which were even greater than the ones that all other SSS rank hunters were producing. Crack. The cracks around the Black Dome became even bigger as the monster became even more enraged. Almost, Farnas thought as he felt the monster becoming a bit slower than before. Bam, 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 bam bam. His spear connected with the monster, with each strike getting stronger than before, as Farnas kept changing the direction his spear would strike from. A complex art, but it was something possible only because he possessed the lightning element affinity. While Farnas was about to strike again, he noticed the silver spell becoming completely grey, and finally, it happened. The entrapment was broken as black energy started descending down like fumes, and the monster roared so loudly as its black energy started running rampant. It was so much that even Farnas stepped back as the hunters below were shielded with the shield that Dexter created with runes, and Silvus was the one who converted one spell circle above their heads. He wanted to isolate the monsters from the peak SSS rank monster even now. And all the others kept pushing the monsters. The fight wasn't over, and it finally entered its last moment as the monster saw sparks of golden lightning from the cloud of black energy that surrounded its vision. In the next moment, it saw a spear coming its way, towards the black stone. And the old man became visible again, with lightning wrapped all around him and his eyes focused on the monster. The eyes that carried a tint of anger, frustration. Die, Farnas said as he pierced the black stone. But at the last moment, Farnas's eyes changed as he finally realized, contemporary romance. His grip on his spear became loose as he felt a wave of frustration boiling over him. But the puppets below started burning with blue fire suddenly. Suddenly, Silvus shouted something, but Farnas didn't hear it. With the truth in front of him, Farnas was holding his anger and frustration inside of him. Suddenly the black stone that had almost shattered melted into liquid form as the monsters below exploded, and two flames appeared in the middle of the sky with black liquid in the center. Farnas, move! Silvus shouted, amplifying his voice with mana. Farnas's eyes looked below as his eyes went wide. He ran in the opposite direction as soon as possible, and so did the other SSS rank hunters. The mana core of two SSS rank monsters, mixed into one, was about to explode. The power behind that explosion was enough to kill even an SSS rank hunter. Boom! All of them turned as they unleashed their mana out of their core and formed a mana shield. A mana shield to stop this explosion from destroying half of Belveria. Seconds ago, Silvus, who was watching Farnas, who was going to pierce through the black stone and end the monster, suddenly felt a strange mana connection between the two burning flames and the monster become unstable. It was as if the flames were being attracted towards the monster. The flow of the mana instantly got reversed, and Silvus immediately looked upwards. All he saw was Farnas holding his spear without moving. Due to his mana sensitivity, Silvus felt the presence of the peak SSS rank monster disappear seconds ago, as soon as he saw the strange mana connection with the Eye of the Archmage skill. It disappeared as if it was an illusion the whole time. It happened so suddenly that Silvus didn't bother to think too hard because, the next moment, the puppet monsters suddenly exploded. And the result wasn't good at all, as Declan and Watson families' SSS rank hunter, being the closest ones, suffered due to the instant explosion. Both of them tried to step away, but it happened all too quickly for them to move. But Dexter came in between and used a rune shield. The damage was done as he looked at the half-torn leg of the Watson family's SSS rank hunter. Blood was coming out, and the bones became visible, and the remnant of blue flame was visible on the wound. Our excruciating pain took over, but they had no time to react as even Declan, who had multiple burns and a wound near the side of his stomach, looked above as they felt a concentrating amount of mana in one place. The fumes started gathering as they all could guess what was about to happen. Core explosion was the term given when a being tried to overload its mana core and cause an explosion of the compressed and dense mana. Only a monster would do it as a last resort if they felt they were about to die. Doing so wasn't possible for any human because of the way their bodies work. And the amount of mana that a human and a monster possessed was way too different for it to work the same way it worked for the monsters. And forcing your mana core ultimately led to excruciating amounts of pain and damaged mana meridians, making the hunter a cripple for life. The explosion that happened wasn't too big, as most of the energy from the flames was transferred above. Silvus saw countless dense mana threads wrapping around themselves as he saw the black stone, which Farnus broke with his spear, melt. "Move from there," Silvus shouted, alerting everyone. "It's a core explosion," Silvus said as his amber eyes shined. Hearing him, Osbert grabbed Declan, who was too injured, and Dexter did the same for the Watson family's SSS rank hunter. Xerax and Silvus were moving away as well when Silvus looked upwards and saw Farnus still standing, still lost in his thoughts. "Farnus, move," Silvus shouted, amplifying his voice with mana. All of them were running away from the center of the core explosion, as stopping the rampant and chaotic energy in that area was impossible. Your strength needed to be more than double that of the monster to be able to suppress the core explosion altogether. Hearing Silvus's amplified voice, Farnus came to his senses when he saw a ball of black energy form beneath him. His eyes widened as he realized what was going to happen. But it was a little too late as Farnus was the closest one to the center point of the core explosion. "Block it," Dexter said out loud as every single one of them turned. Right now, most of them were exhausted, as they had fought for more than a month. Only Dexter was the one here that had the most mana. And so he used almost all that remained, as all of them blocked it from 6 different directions. A mana shield that was wrapped with the aura of 5 SSS rank hunters, Silvus's mana that was encasing the auras was keeping the black energy that was about to devour everything in its path from leaking out. But the problem happened with Farnus, who was too close to the explosion. As he turned, he was the only one who was closest to the sphere of black energy that had blue burning flames flowing all around it. He stretched his hand forward as his golden lightning aura started getting absorbed by the explosion. To stop this explosion, they needed to suppress it with their own mana and absorb the explosion right there. Because even if they lived by escaping, half of Belveria would get destroyed, and it wasn't an option. Farnus's rune started glowing as he felt its power draining quickly, and his eyes became much duller than before. The crown of light started to break as small cracks were appearing all around it. He was about to run out of energy soon enough, and he needed to hold on till the explosion was taken care of. Cracks started appearing in the encasing shield, and black energy started to seep out, and Farnus, being the closest, became vulnerable to that energy. "I think you should take a look at." His aura was nullifying the black energy, but it wasn't normal energy that could be nullified so easily. It was pure destructive black energy that started seeping through his aura slowly. It wasn't much in the beginning, but as all of them held on, Farnus noticed the black energy seeping through his fingertips. Farnus increased his mana and pushed himself even further as he pushed back the black energy and started strengthening the encasing shield. "Hold on," Dexter shouted, as they couldn't let this energy explode outside. They needed to brace the impact themselves and make sure they themselves didn't get hurt, but the amount of power they had left wasn't much. A few were even thinking of leaving, and one of them was Osbert, contemporary romance. Should I use it? Osbert thought as his hair fluttered as he kept using his aura just like the others. Even if Belveria was destroyed, the threat to their lives, which were the SSS rank monsters, were already dead. And a few more had similar thoughts, but they were waiting, as they couldn't leave too early. They still had the chance to handle the situation, and that was why Osbert didn't outright leave first. Because if he did, the consequences of doing so would make him the enemy of other SSS rank hunters. And that is why he was waiting. Waiting for the situation to get even worse, and he could escape, saying that it was his last resort. Push it back, Silvers told them, as he increased his silver mana, and his hands started to shake. And it wasn't just him, many of them were holding on as they were pushing themselves to pour out even more mana. Multiple artifacts appeared on their wrists, fingers, and necks, as they used them to increase their mana slightly. It wasn't a situation where they could hold off and hide their artifacts. Crack. Little more, Dexter said as his runes wrapped around the large black sphere. All of them were safe, but one man was paying the price for his carelessness. It was none other than Farnas. Farnas's eyes looked at both of his wrists that had gotten affected by the black energy. His skin started to turn darker as he could feel the pain running through his body. His mana was trying to fight the black energy, but he was too busy handling the sphere that he couldn't properly protect himself. His runes started to shine as lines and symbols appeared on his hands, and it made the growing black energy slower. Knowing that the damage might be too much, Farnas decided to remove his right hand and use only his left to attract the black energy. The black sphere started compressing a little as all 7 SSS rank hunters poured their mana and auras to suppress it. Little by little they were pushing it, but the cracks kept appearing and more energy would be needed to fix them. Just a little more, Silvers thought as he controlled his trembling hands. His mana right now was healing the encasing shield, and he was making sure that the cracks were getting healed. And it happened. As they started suppressing the black sphere, the moment of explosion came as it became smaller. And the black energy became much calmer than before. Suddenly the rampant energy had calmed down, but it was the silence before the storm. It became much slower as every single one of them got ready to embrace the impact. Boom! The small blob of black energy suddenly erupted as a massive mana wave went out, and all of them tried to contain the main explosion, ignoring the mana wave. The encasing shield started to crack as the black energy shot out and even clashed with some of them, but they ignored it and tried to embrace the impact. Several wounds appeared on their bodies, but they kept holding on. And they were successful, but they paid the price as almost all of them had severe injuries, and it was done by the energy of 2 mid-SSS rank hunters combined course. These types of wounds weren't something that could be healed easily either. A silence fell on the battlefield as all of them descended down, or more clearly, fell to the ground as they didn't have the energy to float in the air anymore. Only Farnas and Dexter were the ones that somehow managed to land on their feet. It was a win, but none of them were celebrating as they all stood, ignoring their bodies that were bleeding and riddled with various wounds. Silence fell among them as their eyes looked at each other. With the common enemy gone, each of them was standing in their vulnerable state. And the feeling of distrust grew stronger between them as all of them maintained some distance from each other. Even with the calamities slain and the major threat having disappeared, it didn't mean the real threat was gone. Zephyr, the masked man, and the people who started all of this, and all of them could guess that someone among the 11 SSS rank hunters was involved. It wasn't possible for such a group to rise out of nowhere and threaten the whole world, and awaken the calamities together in such a way. The only one among them that they knew wasn't behind all this was Farnas Calmot. With the amount of restrictions that Farnas had with all the mana oaths he took, it was impossible for him to be the one that started all this. And Farnas had no reason to do any of this, as without his help, they wouldn't have been able to defeat these monsters either. But above all things, even ignoring Zephyr for a moment, almost none of them got along with each other, and the existence of other SSS rank hunters was simply a threat to them. And this would have been the best time for one of them to step up to do something like that. And this was the reason why the silence prevailed on the battlefield. Dexter looked around, and till his eyes could see, all the land was utterly destroyed, and he could guess that the borders weren't looking that great either. After a massive mana wave from the explosion traveled through them, it was enough to cause some destruction. As Dexter put his hands on his hammer, all eyes looked at him, and a tense atmosphere was created. "Let's calm down," Dexter said as he put the hammer on his shoulder. Watson family SSS rank hunter, who had half of his leg torn, was the most vulnerable one here. He took out a powerful healing potion and drank it immediately, and poured the rest on his legs and chest that had multiple wounds. They needed to recover their strength first to counter the wild mana that was disrupting their natural healing abilities. But there was only one person whose mind wasn't here at all. It was Farnas, who looked at his left hand that was contaminated with black energy up to his elbow. But the thing that he was regretting the most was his decision in this battle. "It seems I have made a mistake, boy," Farnas thought as he tried to clench his left hand but found it difficult. All of them stood up as they took out potions and healing elixirs one by one and drank them. None of them were moving as they would leave together to ensure nothing foul would happen to one of them. Ads by Pub Future. Right now they were in the worst condition, and it would have been the best time to attack one of them. Dexter brought out a ring as he informed his subordinates about the victory, but he felt weird calling it a victory. It wasn't even close to a victory. All of them were injured, and it wasn't easy to guess how long it would take for each of them to recover. He turned his eyes to the side where the monsters were fighting with them, but there was nothing but a gigantic crater with not even a single body of an SSS rank monster. Even the mana gems they might have obtained became the source for the core explosion, and he could guess that the mana waves would have damaged the cities near the border for sure. And he was correct. The last wave was even something that the SS rank hunters with numerous artifacts felt hard to block, and the result was nothing other than the destruction of various cities. The amount of casualties wasn't known as they had evacuated the citizens already, but there were chances of some people remaining in the city. But more importantly, the once lavish cities of Belveria had turned into a mess, contemporary romance. "At least it's over," Dexter muttered to himself. "I will leave first," Osbert said as he floated in the air. "I will leave as well." Zerax stood up, but his injuries were visible. Osbert glanced at all of them. Some thoughts came to his mind, but right now, he needed to go back and make sure everything was working fine, especially his plans. But Osbert was yet to know what sort of crisis had fallen and the mess that was created when he was absent. Farnas moved near the crater, and Silvus looked at him. He didn't know what Farnas was thinking, but Silvus looked at the sky. "I should go see the kids," Silvus thought in his mind. Being so close to death reminded him of his family. Sigh. The balance will break now, Silvus thought as he knew that the injuries sustained by some of them weren't small at all. A wave of chaos was coming, and he knew that this incident was the mark of its beginning. "Zephyr," Silvus muttered. "The cause of it all, and the people behind it, whose identities were unknown, but their capabilities were too shocking for even Silvus, who had lived a long life. Being at the SSS rank, Silvus knew a lot of things that other hunters didn't, and even with his knowledge, he knew that the enemy this time was far more dangerous. From outshining Dexter Wright, who was the first runemaster to ever reach SSS rank, by using strange runes that even he didn't know about. And controlling monsters like the snakes and awakening calamities. Whoever was behind them, Silvus knew that he needed to get ready for the future. While the whole Belveria was anxiously waiting for the news while experiencing dreadful mana waves and warnings to leave the city, the news about the victory of the SSS rank hunters came. "The calamities have been defeated," Multiple news sources were reporting the news just after. 10 minutes after the fight ended. People were eagerly waiting for the words of the SSS rank hunter, but no news about the SSS rank hunters was shared. The only thing that was relayed to the media was the defeat of the calamities. Even the people in power, including the executives of the World Association, didn't know what had happened on the battlefield. Soon, the World Association's top executives were called by Osbert's personal assistant. Osbert had just come back and he immediately went to heal himself, and Declan did the same. The purpose of this meeting was for the top executives to receive the order of the chairman who had just returned. What? All three of them are injured? One of the top executives shouted as he stood abruptly. If this news got outside, it would spark a few people to rise up, as the power holders of the World Association were spending their time healing themselves. The chairman is fine, but it will take him weeks to come back, the assistant said as all the executives listened silently. All of them belong to the three different groups of the World Association, spread between the three SSS rank hunters of the World Academy. Did he say something else? What about Vice Chairman Declan Curtis? How much time will it take for him to come back? One of the people aligned with Declan spoke out. I didn't receive any information about this, the assistant replied. Half an hour later at the mansion in Soren. So it's over, Kai said as he looked at the news, standing behind Tom. Yeah, and we can start the next mission whenever the black market does their transaction, Tom said as he turned towards Asher. So we don't need to go to Belveria now? Kai asked. Tom had told them that in case of any problems with the business contracts, they might need to visit Belveria to fix a few things, but now it wasn't needed. Just by accessing the news channel of the elite family that was accessible to Tom, due to the fact he was using it under Aztec's name, he could see the damage that was done in Belveria. Even the cost of deploying so many SS rank hunters, using countless mana crystals and artifacts, and the destroyed cities, all of this would soon affect the economy of not only Belveria but all other continents as well that were hit by the calamities. Due to the rise of SSS rank monsters, the monster tide would stop, but it wouldn't halt the frequent movement of monsters near the border. Although the major threats were gone, the effects that they left would mark these continents for years, and that was what they were truly after. The whole world was celebrating the defeat of the calamities, but now questions about the man behind it all, the masked man Zephyr, were being raised. But they didn't know that the man behind all this chaos was learning normally among the students of World Academy. So try casting all these defensive runes, and show me your progress in the next class, Professor Neiman said. He left the class, leaving the confused students behind who were still looking at their paper, seeing the faults in the runes they had drawn. Asher stood up as he looked at the notification of his rune mastery going up. Rune Art's mastery has increased. It had been 17 hours since the last calamities were defeated, but none of the SSS rank hunters came out and gave any sort of assuring statement to the public. The World Association and elite families gave their own statements about how the situation was now under control. These announcements made the public calm down, and people were able to go back to their cities like before. But in Belveria, the cities were destroyed as buildings fell, and it was extremely hard to handle the reactions of the citizens of Belveria. Even the executives and other higher-ups of the World Association wanted the SSS rank hunters to come out and give some words and direction on what they were planning to take in the future. If the strongest people said something to the public, it would be much easier to shift public opinion in the direction they wanted. But this was not the only problem they were facing. Apart from the destroyed cities, the economy of Belveria was going to be affected, as the mana waves and the monster hordes had affected key areas responsible for producing various resources. Just the cost to rebuild the whole city and the cost of deploying the highest-ranking hunters with various artifacts and technologies was immense. And this much was calculated excluding the casualties that had occurred in the past month. This was not an SSS rank dungeon that they had cleared, which would have given them resources from the monsters inside it. The calamities, which were the SSS rank monsters that had hidden themselves, were spared in the first place because going out to kill them wasn't worth it. If given enough time, those monsters would sleep eternally, and even if one awakened for some reason, they could deal with it. But this time, it was done intentionally, and the loss that all the associations and the elite families needed to pay was quite high. And there was a loophole in this system. The elite families from Somaria and Halcyon were spared from giving or spending any money to restore their continent, as it was not affected at all. But the associations didn't have that leverage. The High Council made such rules so that if somebody tried to overthrow an elite family, the cost they needed to pay would be too high. Even the High Council majorly didn't like having changes, as it introduced new variables and alliances within the High Council. Also, the reason why the economic sector of each continent was independent of other elite families. This meant that although the Greville were rich, they didn't have control over the economy of Desmar, Hargrave, etc. At the Mage Association Tower, at the highest floor, within a room that Silvus built for himself as his personal training space, he could practice his spells and rebuild them without breaking the whole place. But even then, he needed to control his strength while doing so. Ads by Pub Future. There were no facilities where the SSS rank hunters could use their powers without worrying about destroying everything around them. This was one of the reasons Nathan kept going into the dungeons. It was the only place where he could go all out without worrying about his surroundings. "Can you feel your hand at all?" Silvus asked Farnas. "Not really," Farnas replied as he tried to summon more of his lightning aura. But even with that, all he could feel in his left hand were very faint sensations. "It wasn't like you to get distracted like that," Silvus said as he used mana from his fingertip. Slowly he took his finger across his shoulder to his forearm, where he had made a small cut, and he removed the black energy that was present in his body. The other SSS rank hunters were also doing something similar as they needed to remove the wild mana from their bodies to increase their healing speeds. "What happened that made you like that?" Silvus asked. Both of them were old friends, and Farnas also had trust in Silvus, but this was something that he hadn't told anyone about. "Maybe I have gotten too old," Farnas replied as he looked above and saw the clear transparent glass roof. Silvus disliked closed spaces, so he made his training room in such a way that he didn't feel too restricted by his surroundings. "The Farnas Calmot I knew would have answered it differently," Silvus said, his face remaining calm. "Well, I should return to the World Academy," Farnas said as he stood up instead of answering Silvus. "This will not get any better anyway," Farnas said, looking at his left arm. "I think you should take a look at." Silvus had tried to remove the black energy inside his arm, but doing so would damage his mana meridians a lot. Farnas had no choice but to live like that until he could counter this mana with his own mana. But for Farnas, it was impossible to do so. He had hit his limit and was aware of that fact, but even knowing that, Farnas had no reaction to his hand's current condition. Silvus glanced at Farnas, who was walking towards the edge of the room near the massive glass that oversaw the entire flying island. What is he thinking that is more important than that? Silvus thought. He knew that the way Farnas fought was not even similar to the way he had remembered him. The calmest man among all SSS rank hunters, and also known as the wisest, making such mistakes as getting distracted, wasn't something that Silvus would envision Farnas doing. He knew something was up, but ultimately he didn't push Farnas for any answers. Both of them had their own priorities, and as long as his views didn't clash with Farnas, Silvus didn't mind whatever Farnas was doing. Farnas, on the other hand, looked at his hand as he tried to clench it slowly. The response was slow, as the black energy was interfering with his nerves, and just trying to move his hand was enough to produce pain due to the mana clashing with each other. It might be good if you appear and give a speech to settle down the distress around the world, Silvers suggested. Both of them knew that other than them, all the 5 SSS rank hunters wouldn't appear too soon, and their presence was needed to keep the calm around the world. Various rumors that even went as far as to say a few SSS rank hunters had died started appearing out of nowhere. At the World Academy, Asher was sitting in his room while a hologram was present in front of him. Right now, Tom was contacting Asher directly to discuss a few things, because now that Osbert was back, there were many things Tom needed to keep his eye on. As most of the people connected to Osbert were already destroyed, their companies and businesses were being absorbed by other people. But wouldn't the economy go back to normal, as the World Association has declared they will interfere directly, with other associations also backing them? Tom asked. With Asher's plans for the future, there were chances that even with the contracts they had signed, a few of those people might try to betray them. Don't worry, they would have no time to focus their attention on our activities, Asher replied. But Tom's face was filled with confusion. Now that the calamities were defeated and the search for Zephyr had increased a lot, what Asher was saying didn't make sense to him. What do you think will happen when you remove weights from one side of a balanced scale? Asher asked. One side will go up, Tom replied. That's why they will have no time, Asher replied. As he had seen the effect of killing those SSS rank monsters in the future, Asher knew what was going to happen next. Multiple dungeons will appear much more actively near those continents, Asher replied. As theories of the connection between mana and dungeons were made, one of the most discussed things was the relation between the density of mana present in the world and the appearance of dungeons. As the number of dungeons had increased over the course of time and became stagnant at a certain point, new dungeons were appearing frequently but at a controllable rate. Are you sure? Tom asked nervously. It was simply a prediction from Asher, and Tom didn't know whether they could go on with such predictions. Just do what I have told you, and report any sort of unknown variables that appear, Asher said, contemporary romance. Tom nodded immediately as he disconnected the call. Well, I can only follow the boss's orders. Tom shrugged his shoulders as he continued with his work. He knew that Asher had much more knowledge than them, and whatever he had told them had always been correct. So even this time, Tom believed what Asher told him without thinking too hard about it. Can we know about the condition of other SSS rank hunters? An old reporter asked Farnes respectfully. A press conference was called by the major association, with the World Association arranging everything, and it was being broadcasted around the world over a very secure network. This time, nobody wanted the same incident that happened with the Kalvaz Gala to repeat itself, so the security of the operation towers was also substantially increased. They will be fine, but everyone needs rest after such long fights, Farnes replied, his presence quite heavy in the room. Due to battling to the extreme, his mana core was quite unstable, and his presence was spreading out so much that the only reporters in the room were all rank hunters. For safety reasons, nobody lower than a rank was allowed to enter near the vicinity of Farnes. Can we know about what happened during the battle? Another one asked. We won, and only that matters. I have done my duty, and so did the others, Farnes replied. His answer made it clear that they were not going to get any information about the damage or what happened in the battle that made the other SSS rank hunters present in Belveria not appear on camera at all. Another old person stood up and asked a question that was being raised all over the internet. What steps will be taken against Zephyr, and the organization they have formed? The man asked. Everything about the masked man was a mystery, and people's trust in the High Council was falling. If they could do such things, the future looked bleak, and it made people question the authorities about their intentions and what sort of progress they had made until now. Once their identities are found, they will be purged without doubt, Farnes replied. And even those that join them will be considered as enemies, Farnes said. None of the executives dared to correct Farnas, as only the other 10 SSS rank hunters had the power and authority to question the strongest hunter in the world. "Will you stay back or go back to the World Academy?" one of the reporters asked. "Everyone has their duty to do. Mine is to see over those students that are practicing each day to become the best hunters out there," Farnas said. "And I don't think my presence is needed anymore," Farnas continued. "But if needed, which I don't think will happen, I will come to assist them," Farnas said. After all, with the calamity dead, Farnas had no reason to stay out of the World Academy. And it was better for him to go back to the World Academy and check the situation with his own eyes. Farnas stood up as the conference was finished, and he had given enough answers that would calm the rumors that were spreading all over the internet. Right now, Farnas was wearing a robe that covered his body, so his left side wasn't visible at all, and he didn't want to show it to anyone either. At the World Academy, a few professors were gathered on the top floor of the faculty building, waiting for Farnas to arrive. Not all the 3-star professors were called, but Farnas sent a message that he wanted to discuss the future plans for World Academy. When Farnas was getting treated at the Mage Tower, he knew that his actions had greatly shifted the plans he had, and he needed to do something to compensate for it. "So even we don't have any news about what's happening out there?" Dahlia asked Elsa, who shook her head. Dahlia turned towards Xander, who shook his head as well. "You will know soon, when the principal arrives," Xander replied. The teleporting gate far from the room they were sitting in was lit up as a heavy pressure descended, and all of them could guess it was none other than Farnas. After a while, an old man, wearing a robe, entered the room, and everyone stood up to give their respects to him. "Sit down," Farnas gestured with his hands as he walked and took the centermost seat. Across the table were Professor Neiman, Professor Erman, Professor Elsa, Professor Dahlia, and Professor Argus as well. Xander was sitting closest to Farnas, and he could guess easily that Farnas wasn't at his full strength right now. Being an SS rank hunter, he knew that Farnas was exuding this much pressure without wanting to because of his recent battle. Ra ND Alpha SN Omicron V Epsilon L, C Omicron M. He had similar experiences himself, as he had challenged multiple difficult dungeons and monsters himself in his lifetime. "I think you should take a look at. I will not waste much time, as I have a single announcement to make," Farnas said as he looked at everyone. "From today, I will be busy with my training, so I have a few things that I want to happen until I come back," Farnas said, as all of them got surprised. Contemporary romance. From the moment World Academy was made, Farnas hadn't taken a single break, and him telling them this was surprising for them. Farnas knew that his hand would remain like this, and due to him recalling his ancient rune, the effect that had accumulated for 15 years had gone to waste. Although the people present here wanted to ask what happened that made him take a break like this, they kept their curiosity to themselves. "How much time would it take?" Xander asked. Farnas glanced at Xander. "A few months at least, but this news will be only known to a select few," Farnas said. "There will be a few changes for the end-year tournament and the Trails ground we previously announced," Farnas added. "But, changing it so suddenly?" Arman spoke up. "Don't worry, nobody would raise any questions, and I will handle any issues that arise myself," Farnas replied. With things gone so astray and with new unknown threats appearing, Farnas knew he needed to change something. He had a feeling that something wasn't right, and he needed to change the way things were going to go in the future. Maybe it was his intuition, but he could feel that something was pushing him towards his own demise. With the calamities to the peak SSS rank monster, something didn't add up at all. "I will give you the changes I want to make, so make sure you can work on that as soon as possible," Farnas stood up. Nobody, including Xander, stood up against Farnas, because Farnas had the power to make any changes to World Academy that he wanted. Unless he broke his mana oaths, no one had any issues with Farnas. And make sure that no rumors spread across the academy, Farnes said as he started walking towards the exit. I don't want the chaos outside to affect this environment we built for those children, he said as he left the room. Sigh, it really might be a serious issue with even the principal acting like that, Arman muttered, and everyone heard him. Students were not the only ones that were interested in the news about the outside world and especially Zephyr. Even professors like them wanted to know what was happening and how a threat like that appeared out of nowhere. Nighttime arrived, and Farnes was sitting in his office, looking at the report of everything that happened from the moment he was away from World Academy. He flipped through files, and one of them contained the information about Professor Argus registering an artifact for himself, and Farnes skipped past it. A lot of things were on Farnes's mind, and he didn't bother looking too deep into Argus's files, where all the recordings were present. So, he got unconscious, Farnes muttered as he saw the report about the incident of Kevin Whiteheart. The timing matched exactly with the time he used his ancient rune to its fullest. Farnes disappeared from his office as he went to the medical facility of World Academy. He was in front of the room where Kevin Whiteheart was being treated. Even though it had been more than a day since he fainted, he still hadn't woken up, and Farnes went inside as he had the authority to pass through all the doors inside World Academy. Farnes went near Kevin as he looked down at him, specifically at his mana core. He could feel the disturbed mana turbulence inside his mana core, and it was obvious what the reason behind this was. I can't give it to you until you are ready for it now, Farnes muttered, but Kevin couldn't hear him. Farnes placed his right hand on Kevin's chest as he used his mana to absorb the excess lightning element inside Kevin's mana core and attracted it towards its source. The ancient rune, something that shouldn't have been present in Kevin, had left its marks inside his mana core and was the reason why he was unconscious right now. Don't worry, you will soon receive it back, Farnes said with his eyes that had become cold.